Being good looking and being rich are the two main factors that will kill your dreams of having really, really potent social skills. You want to be great socially, you want to have amazing communication skills, amazing social skills. The two main killers of dreams are if you're too good looking or too rich.
Hammering it out to the bitter end.
So the 3 Ps: presence, process orientation, positive life. Build them up, take advantage, reap the rewards. These different little Twitter, Facebook type influences, which can be used in a productive way as well. We're sitting right out here at the Rocky Steps. You ever heard of the Rocky Steps? You see the movie Rocky, Rocky Balboa? You remember when Rocky runs up the steps, he starts cheering? And in that movie, Rocky has more heart. Even though he's disadvantaged, he has more heart than his opponents. And as a result, he winds up becoming the best champion. It is absolutely no different than that story of Rocky with social skills. The best looking guys that I see are lazy. They never actually understand the principles. They never actually understand the techniques of being a great communicator. They never get any of it. They just sit there being lazy because they've had most of the results handed to them. And so what happens is that when somebody who actually understands the principles comes along and puts in a couple years to learn it, they wind up running laps around these people. Rich people, in my opinion, are even worse. They wind up thinking that they can buy anything. They can buy someone liking them or loving them or being attracted to them just using their money. And the result of that is that it becomes a cliche or a stereotype that if you've got social skills and you go to the club, you will walk into the tables of guys that are rich that thought they could buy their way into attracting people, and you will wind up leaving with the people who they came with. That is just a ugly, ugly stereotype. It's no different than the rich guy whose wife is getting pounded by the pool boy, okay? Hooking up with the pool boy. So that stereotype also applies in social venues. That being the case, what I'm gonna try to explain to you in this video is really what it is that rich people and good-looking people fail to understand about social skills, because they think that just their looks are gonna get them over the hump or their money's gonna get them over the hump, when in reality there's other components to social skills that are vastly more important, far, far, far more potent, and get way crazier results. And when you understand these things, and if you're somebody who's maybe broke or ugly, and you're kind of forced to learn these things, not just to understand them, but to internalize them and to master them, when you master these skills, then what's gonna wind up happening is you wind up just running laps around everybody. People are slack-jawed, people are blown away, people can't believe what it is that you're doing simply because you didn't have a choice and you had to learn the principles. Let's do it.
The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
So by the way, I feel a little bit like Rocky in the 12th round right now, because I'm shooting this after running a 30-hour seminar this past weekend here in Philadelphia. And I've actually stayed up all night to shoot this in the morning before I fly out of town. Now, why do I want to shoot this here? The movie Rocky actually inspired the fuck out of me. I was very, very, very inspired by the movie Rocky. And what it taught me was, it doesn't matter if you're at a disadvantage, because if you try harder and you care more, you're going to master something at a higher level than someone who's had it handed to them. That's just a fact. So understand that anything that you perceive as a disadvantage, it seems that way on the surface, but that is a lie. The reality is, the motivation is not something that most people can ever summon for any amount of money or for any amount of incentive that you might have if you're not rich, if you're not good looking. Because if you know that there's simply no way out other than to master social skills, like you just get that, well then inevitably you're gonna wind up getting incredibly, incredibly good. And you're just gonna wind up having better habits than people that are rich and people that are good looking. So I just wanted to jump in the video to let you know that I'm actually out here today on the beach, practicing what I preach, doing all the things that I tell you to do in these videos. I don't just do seminar videos where I tell you that you should work on your social skills. I go out and I meet and talk to people all the time. Now, as I'm out here doing this, here's what's funny. I've got students that are out here with me watching exactly what it is that I do, and they're kind of blown away by it. But then what I'm doing that I think is blowing them away even more is I'm showing them exactly how to do it so they can get the exact same result. Now imagine for everybody that's out here, for the rest of their lives, if they want to make a business connection, they want to network, they want to make friends, they want to work on making a genuine connection with someone very, very special, they know exactly what to do forever and ever because we came out here and did this work. Well, here's the thing. This work is not for everybody. You've got to be a very, very special kind of person to have what it takes to come out here and do this. You've got to be an action taker. You've got to be somebody who understands the value of knowing how to meet people anytime, anywhere, and realizing that your net worth is your network, okay? When you know everybody, what winds up happening? You make more cash, you're happier, and you wind up raising the vibe for everybody. It's an incredible skill. Well, what I've done is a lot of people have asked me about these trainings, and so I created a brand new website. It's actually brand new with a very, very deep video that's really shocking. It's a shocking video. It's kind of an intense video where I go very, very deep on what it is that this looks like. Like imagine meeting up with me personally and going out and doing this. It's a shocking, crazy experience. And on the website in the video, I show exactly what it is that you can expect. It's really crazy. So if you want to see this, click the link below. And if you think that you're somebody that has what it takes, because this is not for everybody, and you've got to actually add value to the group, okay? In a situation like this, you can't be a leech. You've got to be someone who's bringing energy and is serious about results. If you think that that's you, fill out the form right on the website, and what I'll do is come and meet up with you in person, and we're going to learn this together. But again, that's only if you're the right fit. If you think that that's you, you click the link below, and we'll be sitting out here together doing this and change your life. Anyway, click the link, and back to the video. Look, I'm telling you, you go out to the club, you see these rich guys, their social skills are a joke. Their communication skills are a joke. And most pretty boys also have zero swagger whatsoever, okay? All they have is their looks. They're relying on that. So it is a joke to be able to run laps around these people. In fact, if anything, they're closer to a target than they are at an advantage, okay? It's like you look around, you see a pretty boy, or you see some rich guy, you know that whoever he came with, they're likely to leave with you just because those guys are never going to actually learn proper social skills. So you know that they're actually weak in the vast majority of cases, okay? That's just how this stuff works. So what does that mean, weak? Like, what does it mean that they're weak? I thought they could just sit there while being rich or sit there while being good looking and like that just does the work for them. No, that isn't true. In reality, everything in life is under the principle of what you call frame, okay? It's all under frame. Everything that you see in reality is a frame of reality. Mainstream reality that you see here with buildings and people driving and going to work, it's all under our shared hypnosis, a hypnosis that we all share, which is our frame of reality, okay? Our underlying beliefs, our underlying worldview of how the world works. Now, where do we get this idea of where the world works? We get it from whoever has a stronger sense of reality, okay? So if I have a stronger sense of reality than you, then when you meet me, you will feel my opinions oozing into your brain. If I have a stronger sense of reality than you and I say, that way is cooler than that way, you will instinctively feel like I'm right if I believe it with more certainty than you, okay? So my ability to be certain of what it is that I believe is my frame. And if I believe it more strongly than you believe it, then you're likely to get sucked into that because basically whoever has the strongest reality just wins. That's just how it works, okay? So if you view yourself as a 10 and you view yourself as very attractive, other people get sucked into that belief because you have the stronger frame. So when you see guys that are just kind of weak-willed and they wish they're rich and they wish they're good-looking, what is it that they're wishing for? What they're in effect wishing for is society's permission to feel attractive. Oh, if I could just be good-looking and if I could just be rich, then I could still have a weak frame. I could still believe that I suck, but even though my frame is weak, I could rely on the groupthink and society's frame in order to affirm myself. So see, this is why good-looking guys and rich guys are always at a disadvantage, because inherently, because they're rich or because they're good-looking, they have been mentally trained to stay within the groupthink. They're not used to playing with the big boys. So what winds up happening is society tells them, oh, you're good because you're rich, you're good because you're good looking, and then you swag on in there, and your frame is simply stronger than theirs. You don't buy into their frame. As a result, the people who they came with, maybe they came with a big group of attractive people, they start to buy into your frame, and then what happens is that you pull the attention off of him. And this will happen again and again and again like clockwork. It's like bing, 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 bing. Like it is a joke how consistent this is. And here's the reason why there's nothing they can do about it. Because their mental habit, their mental circuitry is designed to say, well, you know, I'm rich, so I'm good. Society tells me I'm good. I'm good looking. Society tells me I'm good. You come along in there and you say, no, I'm having more fun than you. My sense of humor is better than yours. I just know cooler things than you. I'm having more fun than you. It's just cool to hang out with me. And you have a stronger frame than that person does. Well, inevitably what's going to wind up happening is you're going to pull all the attention away from them. So you simply have a stronger frame. Now, why is it that an ugly guy or a broke guy is more likely to have an elite level frame? Well, simple. He doesn't have a choice. He's going to metaphorically die if he doesn't have a strong frame, right? It's like you see people from the hood. They oftentimes have incredibly strong frames because they just don't have a choice. You come from the hood, you got to have a strong frame. There's no way out of that, right? Step up your frame or die. You know, somebody who's flat broke is more likely to be an elite level business person. They're more likely to do that simply because they don't have a choice. Okay, they don't have a choice. So what I'm trying to show you here is your inability to have a choice, it's what's going to build your frame, okay? In my case, because I've had a lot of bad media, because I've had a lot of bad, crazy books written about me, because I've had a lot of shit talk, because of that, and because I'm not society's ideal, I don't have a choice but to have an elite level frame. I don't have a choice. I can't function day to day unless I have a strong frame. So the fact that I'm not good looking and the fact that I grew up not rich, the result of that is that I had to build a strong frame and I had to build great habits, okay? So remember, in any social interaction, there's one person reacting more to the other than that person's reacting to them. And as a result of that, because I'm not in the habit of looking to other people for how to think, I'm in the habit of seeing the world through my own eyes and not being in the groupthink. Well, then the inevitable outcome of that is when they mess with me or tease me or whatever, I don't fall prey to it because I've never had the luxury of being in groupthink. I've never had the luxury of being told that I'm good. No one's told me I'm good, so I've had to tell that to myself. So when you don't have a choice, your frame is going to be very, very strong. Now, of course, the average broke person, the average ugly person is not likely to actually do that. They're just going to fail. They're going to sink. That is what happens with most of them. But for the people who don't accept that and they build their frame and they know they don't have a choice because they're honestly auditing their situation and they're realistic about it, for the people who do that, they're very, very likely to develop a bulletproof frame. And as a result of that, they're going to have a very high belief they're attractive, they're a great leader, they're funny, they're awesome, the things they do are awesome, their life is awesome, everything's awesome, they're the best option, they're the best person to be with. And because they believe that so strongly, that emanates out, and some little rich guy or some good-looking guy or whatever cannot compete with that because they have been lulled into a slumber of the groupthink. They are acclimated to accepting frames into their psyche. Okay, they've been acclimated to accepting the groupthink, and as a result of that, when you come along and you have a frame that is stronger than the groupthink, they begin to doubt themselves. They begin to feel insecure. They begin to feel dumb, and they start to cry. And they wind up losing out, okay? So this is the first principle to understand of why it is that if you're ugly and if you're broke, that is actually more likely to reinforce your frame, not if you stay within groupthink, because hey, if you stay within groupthink, you're ugly and broke, you're dead. You are dead. Dead, 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 metaphorically. You are metaphorically dead if you stay in the groupthink and you're broke or you're ugly. But because you know that you don't have a choice, you have to design your beliefs. You design them. You choose to believe those things. You know that you don't have a choice. You know that not having those habits means death. And as a result of that, your frame gets strong, massive self-belief, total self-belief, dominate, win, and awesome. Just like Rocky, okay? You get the point? Heart wins over gifts that you're born with every single time. And it's the power of the human spirit. And we see it again and again and again, because that is just God's plan, and that is just how the world works.
Knowledge, I got enough here. I want to give it to you. I want to give you this knowledge. I want to take care of you. I want to make sure that all this shit that happened to me doesn't happen to you.
Okay, so the next thing that rich guys and good-looking guys honestly just don't get is the importance of active state control. Now, if you're rich and you just bought a table, you know, to bring your friends out, or if you're good looking and you think that you can just sit there and that people are going to come to you, you're not going to know what active state control is. You're probably just going to get drunk or do cocaine. But when you're ugly and you're broke, you know very well the importance of actively controlling your state. You know that if you don't control your state, you're probably going to have what's called a state crash. And there's going to be no little floaties or floaty board or life jacket to save you, and you're just going to completely drown. So what you'll do when you're ugly or good looking is you'll actively control your state. And that is everything from what you focus on in social interactions to your physiology. I mean, there's a whole art form to it. I've made many, many, many videos about it. But when you're ugly and when you're broke, you understand that you have to actively control your state at all times. Now, again, imagine a good-looking guy being like, oh, I got to control my state, or a rich guy being like, oh, I got to control my state. They don't tend to think like that. They are too lazy to think like that. So as a result, because you are actively controlling your state by controlling your focus and your physiology and your belief systems and your momentum and everything that you're focusing on and all that stuff, because you're actively, and look up other videos on this, I go for hours and hours and hours on how to actively control your state. Because you are ugly and because you are broke, you understand that you have to actively control your state. You get that. You know you can't just not control your state. Like, I'm just gonna not control my state. I'll be broke, I'll be ugly, and I'll be in a bad mood. Obviously, you can't let that happen. So because for you, it is do or die, you will always actively control your state. So let's look at what this looks like up until this point, right? If you're somebody who's broke and who's ugly, then what winds up happening is you have a mastery of your frame because it's do or die, death if you don't control the frame. And likewise, you're somebody who has massive, absolute state control. Nobody can get on your skin. Nothing can affect your emotions. Nothing can stop you because you're ugly and because you're broke. Because you will die if you allow yourself to be affected emotionally when you're ugly and broke. So you're developing incredible habits, okay? Incredible habits that you have. You are impeccable on these habits. You will never allow your state to be affected. Never. You might be, sitting here on Monday morning after running a 40-hour seminar here in Philadelphia and haven't gone to bed. Doesn't matter. It's not going to affect your state. Straight up. It's going to make you sound like you hit puberty. It's not going to affect your state. Got it? Now, the next one is you're also going to become a master of screening. If you're rich, you're good looking, maybe you don't need to screen. You probably don't need to screen, right? You can just sort of chat and build a little rapport, and maybe that will do it. Maybe, maybe not. Usually won't, but you'll tell yourself it will. And, you'll catch a win here or there. And as a result, you'll just go and chat and socialize and build a little rapport, and you're not going to remember to screen. Now, when you're ugly and you're broke, you know that everyone's just going to actively screen you out. You know that. You know you're ugly. You know you're broke. So why would anyone like you? They're going to immediately screen you. As a result, knowing that they will, quote, get the ick, you know that the only way to stop them from getting the ick is for you to get the ick first. And you will begin to screen them. You might say, oh, you're lying, you're a schemer, I don't trust you, we're too similar, we wouldn't get along. You'll start to screen. You'll do this proactively because you know that you have to. And because you know that you have to, you will always be the buyer and everybody around you will always be the seller because you are going to constantly be cognizant of the buyer-seller dynamic, and everyone around you is going to be self-qualifying to you and begging you for your approval, and you're going to do this because you know that you don't have a choice. You know that actively, okay? So imagine that rich guy. Imagine that ugly guy. Imagine that rich guy. Imagine that good-looking guy. Well, he doesn't have those habits. So they go out, maybe they're chatting someone, you happen to bump into their interaction, you start screening the person they came with. That person that they came with starts chasing your approval. They're confused. Wait, how's this ugly broke guy competing with me? I'm so good. This is impossible. It can't make any sense. When in reality, when you just screen, the results are off the fucking charts, okay? They're ridiculous when you just screen, practically. Well, because you're ugly, because you're broke, you know that, and so you're gonna do that properly, okay? Now, the next one is sense of humor. A rich guy, really good-looking guy, he doesn't have the same incentive to have a sense of humor that you do. So as they're going about their lives, they're like, I'm rich, I'm good looking, I'll just drink my coffee, I'll just drink my matcha, I'll just go about my life, whatever, right? But you're broke, you're ugly, so you know that you have a commitment to always just being aware of what's funny around you and to just kind of mentally taking a note of it. Maybe you have little funny accents, you have little funny jokes, you have funny ways of singing, you have funny ways of imitating people, you're amazing at imitating people. So again, you walk up to some rich guy, you walk up to some good-looking guy, they haven't really developed that. So in most cases, because they haven't had to, well, then as a result, you wind up being hysterical and they wind up becoming a spectator. And again, they brought their sand to the beach and you wind up leaving with their sand. And that's going to happen again and again and again and again and again. Just going to happen, right? So you know that. Because you know that you can't get away with it, you're not going to be lazy and just fail to develop a sense of humor. You're going to put a massive focus on sense of humor because you know that if you don't, you're dead. You are dead if you don't do that. You know that, okay? So as a result, you're going to develop an amazing sense of humor. So now you got some good-looking guy, some rich guy, they kind of mosey on in, and you come in, your frame is bulletproof, your state is totally controlled, you are screening the other people, so they're chasing you, you are hysterical. And then in addition to me, like my voice sounds in my little puberty mode, you're hysterical. And then in addition to that, you also have great vocal projection. Why do you have great vocal projection? Well, you know that your voice is always gonna have to be booming and powerful to convey power. You know this because you're ugly and broke. So obviously, if you're ugly and broke, you're not gonna be walking around like, hi, hey, what's up? You know, right? Like, you're gonna convey yourself with power and authority. You know that. Of course you're going to, because you're ugly and broke. And so if you fail to use your voice when you're ugly and broke, you know that that is death. You're dead. So you're going to actively go and do that, okay? No different than if you're coming from the hood, you know that you gotta work real hard to get out the hood. It's no different than that. You are going to have to go balls to the wall and have incredible vocal projection. Make sense? Next up, you're also gonna make sure that you cultivate an incredibly massive ecosystem of positive emotions. You're gonna have hobbies, you're gonna have passions, you're gonna have things that that you have mastery over. You're gonna have all sorts of cool things that you're doing in your life. You've got friends, you know that you're doing incredible parties. You're probably doing the best parties in your city. You have the best parties of anyone in your entire city. You've got a great social group. You know a ton of girls, you know everybody. Why? Well, you can't just be broke and ugly and then you're just sitting there like, no, it's just me. I have no hobbies. I have no passions. I have nothing I'm good at. I freaking suck. I have no friends. I don't know any girls. I'm just some weird little creeper who just sits there and stares at you. Well, obviously you know that if you don't have those, you're dead. So you're going to go and actually do those things, whereas the rich guy is probably less likely to actually cultivate all those different elements simply because they don't think they have to. The good-looking guy doesn't think he has to. So they're not gonna put the same effort that you're going to put into that. Are you seeing the commonality that I'm getting at here? What I'm trying to say to you is they are less likely to do these things. They're just less likely, right? You know, likewise, next up, that if you're broke and if you're ugly, that you have to be very unstifled. You can't have neurotic holding patterns. You can't be all stiff. You can't be self-monitoring. You certainly can't care what people think of you because you don't have the luxury of that, okay? You can't be, oh, I'm ugly, I'm broke, but I'm very stiff as well. I'm very stiff as well. So because you know that you are dead, you are metaphorically dead if you just are too stifled, care too much what people think, and you have all these neurotic holding patterns. Because you know that, you are always gonna be getting looser, more fun, and unstifled, and unfiltered, because you know you got nothing to lose, right? You know that if you punch at the wall, your hand's gonna break. It's safer just to punch through the wall, metaphorically. So because you know that, you're going to perform, straight up. And likewise, you're also gonna be somebody who's willing to take a little bit of an emotional risk. And what I mean by that is, obviously, somebody who is good looking or rich, they're not gonna take that risk of looking dumb, but when you're ugly and broke, you're gonna take the risk of looking dumb and maybe say that crazy thing, or, you know, go say hi to that person that would make everybody else nervous to say hi to, because you got nothing to lose, and you know that you can't just sit there being rich or being good looking and have everything handed to you. So again, let's look at how this winds up being. You got your little rich guy, you got your little good looking guy. Those guys sit there, they have never had to build frame. They've never had to unplug from groupthink. They've never had to learn screening. They've never had to learn state control. They've never had to learn humor. They've never had to build a strong peer group. They've never had to build parties. They've never had to get unstifled. They've never had to do anything. But because of that, here's the problem. There's always a richer guy. There's always a better looking guy. And to be frank, it's usually not enough to get you over the hump socially in most cases anyway. So because they think that they can get away with it, they're never forced to actually learn. They never have the metaphorical gun pointed at the head. They never metaphorically burn the boats, and they're stuck in mediocrity. Like Tony Robbins says, the enemy, the best of the good. They never reach an elite level. So they start off better, but they simply, it is almost impossible to get to an elite level when you've had a comfort zone handed to you, okay? It's like in the movie, the third Batman movie with Chris Nolan, with the character Bane. It's like, I was born in the dark. You adopted the dark, I was born in the dark, right? If you were born in the dark, the habits that you will create, the intensity, the passion, the dedication to it that comes from coming from raw survival is gonna be something that nobody else can compete with. And like I said, we're sitting here at the Rocky stairs, and the movie Rocky, it shows the power of the human spirit, it shows the power of the human heart, that no matter what happens, the harder things get, the more that we will elevate and the more that we will thrive. So I want to wrap with a story about when my ability to stay in the group think was destroyed. It's actually happened a couple times. And I want to show you how by people trying to kill me, basically trying to push me to the point that I'd blow my own brains out, that actually wound up being what made my career. So when people try to come for your fucking head, understand that that's what's going to make your fucking career. Do you get this, okay? When they come for your head and they try to push you to a point that you want to blow your own brains out, that is what's going to make your career. Here's how it works. Here's the exact way that it works. Okay? I'm not going to explain to you some little metaphor like the power of the human spirit only, even though I believe in that. I'm going to explain to you the mechanics behind it. Here's how it works. Okay, there's two different places that human beings get the reality. The first is from firsthand experience, and the second is from groupthink, which is looking at how much social proof the person that's speaking has and how much certainty that the person that's speaking has. So if you see somebody who's very, very certain and they're in front of a group, that is going to weaken your frame. It's going to tell your brain you should just listen to them. It'll tell your brain this because your brain is looking for survival, and your brain's going to be like, well, if everyone else believes that, in order to harmonize with the beliefs of the group, you should also believe it, because if you believe what they believe, they're less likely to ostracize you from the tribe and you're less likely to die. So your brain has a mechanism that if someone's very certain, or if you see a large group of people believing something, in order to try to achieve harmony within the group and not get ostracized from the tribe, it will cause those beliefs to seep into your mind. So sometimes people want to ruin your life. And maybe they write some crazy book and where for hundreds of pages they try to rip you to shreds, like what happened to me in an Amazon best-selling book that was probably the #1 book or something like that for around a year on Amazon or something like that. Basically hundreds of pages saying I'm a dickhead. Or there's been media fiascos where they take things that we said, cut them completely out of context, give them no context at all, and then they try to make it look like we're fucking insane. Or different podcasters that'll have like 30 million views between all the platforms, making you look like a dickhead, trying to get you to live out your life hiding in your basement, wishing that you were dead. When they do this, understand, it is fucking demon possession that makes them want to kill you. They're not your little buddies. They want to hurt you. Now, when this happens, one of two things are going to happen to you. One of the things that's going to happen is that they are going to you are going to stay within the groupthink, and then you're going to hide, and you're going to feel embarrassed, and you're going to feel ashamed. The other thing that's going to happen is you're going to have all of the little tentacles that you had that fed into groupthink, that actually cared what other people thought or even derived any information from what other people thought at all. And all those little subconscious tendencies that rely on groupthink are going to get, it's kind of like the little tentacles get withered, they get burned. Because anytime that you try to draw energy or fulfillment or happiness from what other people think of you, just hurts you because you've been publicly attacked. So what winds up happening is under that attack, you wind up cultivating better habits. And it's the kind of habits that you could never cultivate in a million years if you had a softer life. You just couldn't do it. It is physically impossible to have a stronger frame than somebody who's been through that, because they basically got to a point where they were so utterly burned by it that 24 hours a day they could never ease into finding comfort in the groupthink. They just never could, because anytime that they tried to find comfort in what other people thought, millions of people hate me. Millions of people think I'm an asshole, right? So as a result of that, you have to cultivate better habits, okay? I broke my leg skiing about a year ago. It was a tib-fib, comminuted fracture and tibial plateau, torn to shreds. Doctors initially thought I would never walk again. I was in excruciating pain for a month or two, excruciating for several months. First month being the worst. Okay, couldn't walk, couldn't function, gained weight from it, lost some muscle mass, real bad, okay? Real bad. What do you think is going to happen to your capacity to manage pain when you've been in pain that long? Inevitably, you have to learn to breathe through it. You have to learn how to manage pain. Nothing can replace that kind of life experience. Nothing can replace that kind of life experience. It just can't. So someone who's never been in that situation would not have the capacity to manage pain at that level. Well, look, in the same way, if you are ugly, if you are broke, you will have to have the best social habits, and you'll never be able to let off the gas. It'll never happen. But inevitably, what winds up happening as a result of this is you wind up having the best possible social habits simply because you didn't have a choice. So understand, losing the capacity for choice, no longer being in a position where you can be lazy, is actually in your favor. Nobody will ever be able to compete with you, ever. It will never, ever, 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 ever happen. It's impossible that they could ever be on your level simply because of what you went through, okay? So what you think of as a deficiency is actually your greatest asset. Understand that. Nobody can compete with you. But here's the thing. You either get bitter or you get better. And if you make the choice to get bitter, you will go directly, one-way ticket right down to hell. That means if you think you're not good looking or rich and that's a disadvantage, you wind up becoming somebody very, very bitter. You become bitter at the opposite sex. You become bitter at other people. You become bitter at God. You become bitter at your lot at life. You believe that you're at the effect of your life and not at the cause. That will have spiritual ramifications. That is the deal with the devil. It is bad when you do that. Or you're going to get better. You're going to find God. You're going to find the beauty in other people. You're going to find the beauty in your own power. You're going to find the beauty in your potential. You're going to see what you're actually capable of. And when you find that, nothing is more valuable. So yes, you'll wind up getting rich from it. If you came up poor, you'll wind up getting very rich. You'll wind up by getting incredible social results. You have way better social results than some little pretty boy. You'll get that, right? If you're somebody whose reputation was attacked, you'll wind up having a better reputation because your skill will exceed the damage to your reputation. That will all happen. That will all happen for you. But the question is, do you get bitter or better? Okay, so anyway, I can remember actually shooting another video here on the Rocky Steps, okay? And it was like right over there. And it was my first time in Philadelphia. And I remember I ran up the stairs and I yelled, Adrian! Adrian!
It's a dream of mine. I've never been to Philadelphia.
I'm not even sure if that's even Rocky on the top. But anyway, I yelled, Adrian. And you'll actually hear people yelling that from here. And I made a video about how it's important to hammer it out until the bitter end. You remember that video? It was a classic. Many days ago, I lived a much simpler life back then. Much, much simpler life. And the world is a simpler place. It was a lot of fun. I miss it. Those were the days, but there's new challenges now, and actually they're creating incredible growth now. So back then, I said when you go out and socialize, you hammer it out to the bitter end. That is the last habit that I would even share with you here today. You think somebody who's some naturally good-looking person, some naturally rich person is going to hammer out to the bitter end? No, they're just going to go home. They're going to go home alone, and that's it. They're not going to have those kind of habits. But again, it's that drive to hammer it out until the bitter end. Honestly, that is the single most beautiful thing that you could get from any of this. So anyway, I'm going to go get some much-needed rest. And let me ask you another question. What other guru do you know that runs a seminar and just stays up all freaking night and shooting videos the next morning? It's very uncommon, right? Where'd that come from? You've watched me do that for years. Where'd that come from? That came from getting a bunch of sand kicked in my face. And it created better habits. And that's what I'm saying to you. Everything that you do, if you're coming from a place that's tough, honestly, will be to your advantage. You will do things that you never thought possible. You've got an incredibly, incredibly beautiful life. I know that you will. I know that you'll realize that what you believe is your greatest deficiency is in fact your greatest strength. You simply combine it with not getting bitter, but better, learning the right principles and habits, and implementing them relentlessly with a ferocity and seriousness that somebody who has a way out would never be able to marshal. That's it. I'll talk to you soon. Adrian! All right. Peace.